Welcome back to the Power of Care podcast. I'm your host, Brianna Dance, and today I have an amazing guest and friend, Antoine Trowers.
Hey,
he is a friend of mine from Howard. We went to our social work program, our master's program together. And so, Antoine, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Antoine Trowers. I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts. Came to DC maybe 15 years ago. Since then, I've worked mostly in the social services field. Went to school at Howard with you for 2 years. After that, left and kept working, and then started my own practice. And now I'm trying to create more things as far as engaging certain populations of people within the Maryland area. So I'm all about helping and serving people, and that's my career.
Yeah. So you've been doing this for like 15 plus years, serving people for like 15 plus years, I'm sure in different capacities. So you are a practice owner. So for those who don't know, he's a therapist. A black male therapist, we know they're unicorns, okay? In our program at the time, how many black male therapists were in our cohort? Do you remember? Were you the only? You weren't the only.
No. There was Derek.
Maybe
maybe like 5.
On one hand?
Yeah, maybe like 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 5 of them.
Yeah, and it's. I just see you guys as so important. I remember there was a professor, I think my field instructor was like, always ask about the fathers. Always ask about the men in our clients' lives. And that stuck out to me because I had amazing men in my life. And so I was like, yeah, always ask about the men.
Yeah.
So if we could kind of dive into like the men in your life, did you always have men in your life to look up to, or were you kind of the one to change like what that looked like for your son and daughter?
Well, so my dad wasn't present for the majority of my childhood, but I had some amazing uncles, grandfather. I lived with my grandfather, actually. He was my father figure. And they were, they had flaws, but they were responsible. They held me accountable. They were very positive role models for me. So, but I think, it's different living with a father and someone that is directly connected to you. It's a different feeling.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I got all of it, but I feel like I got some of it from the men that were in my life.
Yeah. So we were talking before, your undergrad degree was in business.
Yes.
So how did you become a social worker and therapist?
Wow. So it's a weird story, but I was a marketing major. I came out here to do a marketing job. And after like about 9 months, the company closed down. And I kind of just went back to what I knew and what I felt comfortable with. And that was always working with kids. Like being a camp counselor, being a coach. I was just like working with kids. It was just fun. So I just jumped kind of back into that and started working at different social service agencies or group homes or just jobs here and there. And then I got a job with DC Public Schools, working with families. And that is kind of where I met, at that particular point in my life, I met three black men came into my life that kind of shaped the rest of my future. So we ended up getting a male black director who also went to Howard School of Social Work.
Okay.
A guy came in from another agency who also graduated from Howard School of Social Work. And then I started to have my first therapeutic experiences with a psychologist that was a black male that also graduated from School of Psychology, doctor.
At Howard?
At Howard.
Okay.
So 3 black men from Howard came into my life. And they were all for different reasons. One kind of was about my personal and spiritual development. One was about my career development. And one was just kind of like a mentor and friend. And so I was blessed to have them in my life at that particular time. And that 2-3 year period of like that really changed my life. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So now, how much influence did they have in you choosing Howard?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was, who was it? Like it was a money thing a little bit. And but like, yeah, like when I talked to them about it, they're like, nah, it's gotta be HU. It's gotta be HU. So and I'm glad that decision was probably the best decision I made. I got so much out of those 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such a cool program. I know it wasn't easy. Like for me, I too kind of was a career switcher. Like I told you earlier, journalism was my foundation, but like at my core, I was just like going through my own healing journey. And I think maybe that's how a lot of us end up there. It's like we end up being like doing the work and then we end up paying it forward, I guess, somehow. So how did your therapist or your psychologist, how did your experience with therapy shape you into wanting to be a therapist now?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to be a helper.
Okay.
Just in a coaching sense and tutoring and being a counselor, like I always was a helper. And when I was younger, I wanted to be a teacher. But, but I think a family member told me that teachers don't make money. And
so you were like, oh no.
And now I'm back kind of like teaching. Like I'm in schools, I'm teaching families, I'm teaching. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I'm sorry, what was the question again? Yeah,
no, the question was like, how did your experience with your therapist or like inform you wanting to be a therapist? But you said you were always a helper. Like since you were little, you were always a helper.
So just being, because we were talking about being a father, being a man, having purpose, having a career. I think at the time I was just like picking different jobs and moving around, and I needed to have a career, and it came down to just picking. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to do what you're doing. And he was like, okay. And so I was like, so then that was it. Like I had made my choice. Just like picking and knowing what you want to do it means a lot. Like that. A lot of times we don't do what we want to do because we have too many choices and we just like, we can't pick. But once you pick and you're like, you're sure about it, then you just go for it. And so, yeah, I went right back to school with 2 kids full time, and it was crazy, but I don't even know how I made it.
How did you do it?
I don't know.
Because
I have no idea.
I would say I was probably spoiled at that time in my life because I was staying at home with my parents. I mean, I was kind of broke, but you know, it's fine. Yeah. I didn't have any kids though, and I didn't have to work a full-time job. I was working part-time and I didn't have a lot of money, but I had a cushion at home. You had 2 kids and a full-time job. And were you in school full-time?
Yeah, and school full-time. I don't know how I did it. I have no idea. That was God.
It was God.
I have no idea how I did it.
And did you have to have a field placement? Or?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Field placement. I did 1 field placement. I think it was with veterans. And then the second one, I was able to finagle kind of a field placement within DCPS.
Oh, and good, because you were already in the system.
Yeah, so I just had to work a little bit more in order to meet my hours. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you persevered. You ended up getting licensed. So for those who don't know, becoming a social worker, licensing is important if you want to do therapy. So how was that journey for you? Like, did you get it on your first try?
I did. I was lucky enough to get them both on my first try.
Okay.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I studied, but like, I was blessed to get it done on my first try. But like before I took the test, especially the last one, I already I knew what I was gonna do. Like I already had my practice in mind. I already knew I wanted to be a therapist, and I was just like, I just need to pass this test.
Right.
As soon as I pass this test, I'm doing therapy. I'm going straight into it. And luckily, I passed it on the first attempt.
Good.
So, yeah.
And so your practice name is Ubuntu?
Yes.
Ubuntu
Wellness, yes.
I am because we are.
Yes.
Now tell me about the name and how you got it.
So Ubuntu, I got the word Ubuntu. I learned about the word Ubuntu when we went to South
Africa.
Yes. Right. We had a class And it was part of the class was we learned about South Africa. We learned about the systems in South Africa, and then we went to South Africa and participated in some NGOs and other core service agencies, and we worked. And one of the things that they kept talking about was this concept of Ubuntu, right? Which is like a collective or a responsibility for each other, or understanding that we are all connected. And I don't know, that just like kind of stuck with me. I was like, okay, Ubuntu, like this is a very powerful name. And there's a lot of meaning under it. And I wanted something with substance. And so it just stuck with me. So I was like, okay, Ubuntu Center for Wellness. Yeah.
And tell me about some of the modalities that you use. I know this is all like therapy words. Yeah. So for those who don't know, a modality is what? How would you describe a modality to someone who's trying to break into therapy and maybe looking for a therapist? Yeah,
so modalities are just like tools, right? So like, I think every therapist, you know, they have a toolbox of different modalities that they'll use to kind of get to the root of the issue and treat it. And so modalities, just like, you know, you have a shovel does something, axe pick does something, or, you know, like these tools, they kind of do something for certain situations and certain things. And so having these different modalities, just like having different tools, right? Like, okay, this calls for this, I'm gonna go grab this. This calls for that, I'm gonna grab that. And eventually what happens is like the tools just become an extension of you, right? And so now it's just like it's just like you just know, like, okay, I use this, I use that, I use this. And so there's probably like 3 modalities. Well, there's 3 modalities I've been trained in. There's a couple more. But the ones that I use the most are CBT, DBT, and EMDR. Like those are the ones that those 3 I probably use the most. But I've been trained in other stuff too. But I think the majority, you know, of things come from CBT and DBT. EMDR is a little bit newer. But the root of EMDR is still based in CBT and DBT.
Thank you for sharing that, because we're trying to educate people out here. What are some themes that you see when it comes to men specifically, and how we can help, I guess, maybe break the stigma when it comes to getting men to speak? Or have you seen more men get support?
No, like, really? No, right? So men are, to me, and I don't want to make this, because I see a lot of this on social media, is this division. And I don't want to make it a man and woman thing, but, you know, I just think that we're taught to suck it up, right? We're taught that we shouldn't have needs, right? And that is counterproductive. It's self-sabotage, right? Because everybody has needs, just intrinsically, we all have needs. But a lot of us, especially Black men, right, we get incentives to not have needs, right? We get, you know, praise to not have needs, right? Just kind of get things done, help out, but not really speak up so much about what you need.
Wow. That makes me sad.
Yeah, no, it is a sad thing. And I think it's so subtle that like you miss it. But it starts at a very early age, right? Where you're just taught that your needs are not important. And so you learn to repress them. But that causes so many other problems on the back end.
Like what?
So, you know, just imagine that you had to swallow all of these feelings or these emotions, and there was no place to really express them, or there's no one that was really going to listen to you. Those feelings and emotions have to go somewhere.
Right.
And so we either find a place where we can express them, but they're usually not out in public, right? This is when we isolate. This is when we have secret lives, or we're doing other things, or whatever it might be. Because the place where we really need to get the need met, we don't feel comfortable enough to express that there. So we're going to go find some place to get that need met.
Right.
Needs are subconscious, right? That everybody does things for their needs. You're doing this for a need. I'm doing this for a need.
Right.
She's doing that for a need, right? We're just all of our behaviors, and we're trying to get needs met. And so to think like in the appropriate place where you're supposed to get the need met, you're not doing it, but you're still going to get it. You're still going to find a way to get it met.
Whether it's healthy or not.
Yes, right. And so this is where we get like a lot of, maladaptive behaviors, right? Like things that meet the need, but they're just not good for you, right? So numbing through substances or having different addictions, whether whether it's work, whether it's sex, whether it's this, whether it's that. These are all places where those needs get met, right? Because they're not being met in the appropriate setting, in the place where you should be asking for those needs to be met. You're not addressing it. And I think that's like the main problem for men is that they don't feel comfortable enough to say what it is that they need. And if that need is not going to be met in that place, then they don't leave, right? They just stay there thinking that something will change, but nothing will change. And so you have to leave and find a place where your needs will be met. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people. Yes, it's a hard thing for a lot of people. Yeah,
thank you for sharing that. As women who, whether it could be a wife, a girlfriend, partner, mother, sister, how can we support or make those spaces available for the men in our lives?
It's a good question. It starts at a young age, right? And really what it starts is allowing space, right? A lot of times we learn that as little boys, we learn that our parents' needs mean more than our own, right? So imagine that I depend on you for love, right? And I have nowhere else to go for it. But maybe you're emotional, maybe you're sad a lot, maybe you're this, maybe you're that. My attention will go to meeting the need so that you are capable of loving me, right, as a kid. And so that starts kind of that cycle of looking outside of yourself to address other people's needs before addressing your own, right? And so that's what we learn at a very young age. And that's kind of how, like, it just keeps going and going. So what can be done is holding space, right? And I know that's like a very generic term, but holding space just means like allowing someone to express their true self, right? Or what they truly feel without any like input, judgment, or anything, right? And then also like following up and addressing that need. Like, okay, well, how do we address that? Because this is something that you need.
Right.
Right. And that can be, it's a complicated thing because sometimes people take it personally when someone has a need, right? Like, I need you not to yell at me. What are you trying to say? I yell too much.
Right. You're making about them.
Them, right? Exactly. When no, I just need you to hold space and to be curious and to ask more questions and to come up with a plan on how we do create a space where no one's yelling, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, I love that word, be curious, because curiosity can like push down judgment. It's if we ask questions, then it just reduces some other issue.
Yes, right? Like judgment, worry, anger, that's all fear, right? Curiosity is love.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But that was selfishly, I'm trying to figure y'all out, But no, Antoine, I mean, we could talk all day, therapy talk, because, men, women, children. So your clientele, tell me about the range of people who you help.
I see families.
Okay,
you see families. So like I mostly see families. I was trained mostly with kids at first, and I think as a mental health profession, you learn that in order to heal the child, you have to heal the parents, right? You have to work with the parents because the parents are responsible for creating the child's sense of self.
Yes.
Right? And so what ends up happening usually for me is, and this is why it's so important that we just need more therapists, because it is so hard for me to, once I start seeing a child, to find another therapist for the parent. And I almost like want to make it a requirement that it's like, if I'm seeing your child, then you have to be getting help too, right?
Yeah.
And working on yourself. But it is a very hard thing. And so a lot of times I'll do, sessions without the client present, or sessions with the client present, but it's with the parents. And I'm trying to teach them as much as possible about their responsibility of creating the child's like a strong sense of self, and how to hold space for a child, right? And so that it's not only about your emotions, but only about theirs, right? So that cycle doesn't start up again, where we're more worried about what other people think than staying within ourselves.
Absolutely. Now, what advice would you have for other clinicians when it comes to managing like ourselves and our, stuff that we bring when we're trying to help other people? Like, how important do you think like self-care is? Like, what are you doing these days for that?
It happens a lot. I would just say boundaries, right? Like, try to keep as much boundaries as possible. You might not understand the purpose of it, but you're dealing with so many different people that have all these different backgrounds. And in order for you to stay sane and managing it has to be systematic, and it has to be, structured. So, no discussions about certain conversations, keeping things about like client related, only speaking during certain hours and through only certain ways. And so that people understand that this is a therapeutic relationship and nothing else, right? Like, I'm not your friend, I'm not your family member, I'm not on call. Like, I have a job, I have to manage myself, and I have to manage my children. So I have to protect that. Like, I have to protect myself in that way, so that I still have enough to give, like, myself and my kids.
Absolutely. That's really good advice. And I kind of want to shift into fatherhood.
Okay.
So you have 2 kids.
Yes.
Tell us about them. What it's like when you found out you were a dad, and now like they're kind of like going into preteen, teen age, and maybe advice to other dads about navigating the different life transitions that they are in.
So I have a daughter that is 12. She'll be 13 end of the year. I have a son that's 15. Wow. I think that before anyone has a kid, that they should go to therapy. It is it should be a requirement. It really should, because you just need to know like what you're carrying and what you're bringing, and understand like if those things aren't addressed, what the effects could be on the child, right? Like, and who they're going to grow up to become. If you have no knowledge of like generational trauma or anything like that, like, you need to read a book on that within the, like a lot of people buy baby books. Like, buy a generational trauma book as a part of your prepping process to have a baby, because you need to understand like what your parents gave you and what you could potentially be giving to your child. So that is one piece of advice that I have. With me, and don't get me wrong, like, none of these things I am not a perfect parent by any way.
I don't think there is.
But there's a goal, right? As long as you have structure and there's something you're reaching for, that is better than nothing. So just understanding the way that things need to work, giving yourself grace and understanding that you won't be perfect all the time. But at the same time, like, strive for the best, because at the end of the day, their ability to be independent and functioning will affect your life as well too. So it's like putting in the work now so that, later on things aren't as hectic for you, right? They've hit all their stages of development. And so now you're not like trying to help them at 25, like meet a certain stage or hit a certain goal that they should have done at like 12 or 11 or whatever. So just be informed. Just be informed. Yeah.
Do you feel like going through School of Social Work and like learning about human behavior, did that help you, or does that like make you hyper aware where it stresses them out? Like,
yeah, I be doing too much.
You do too much.
I do too much. I be doing too much sometimes. They tell me though.
Okay.
They're like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to do that. I don't want. I'm like, okay, all right, cool.
But you try to be in tune with like with their family.
Yeah, and they're different kids.
Yeah.
And there are different ways that I have to like come at them.
Mm.
And I adjust to them. And so my son likes space. My daughter, I mean, she likes space too, but she's just more of a creative. She like if I spend more time with her.
Mm-hmm.
My son, he opens up when we're doing physical activity. She's not so much like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just gotta figure them out,
learn
study them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Kids, wow, they seem complex.
Yeah, they are. But at the same time, right? The boundaries piece, like they have their life, and I have mine.
True.
Right? I'm meeting my needs. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm working on myself. I'm trying to make my dreams come true. Like I have my whole life.
Yeah.
And I focus on myself and try to do those things, and I get my needs met through that.
Yeah.
Like I try my very best not to get my needs met through my kids, and that's usually what ends up happening. That causes, that the children looking outside of themselves, for love, right? And instead of, they're trying to please the parent or they're trying to cater to their needs. That's because this dynamic has been created where the parent is trying to get their needs met through the child, right? And this is why they get so upset or so emotional when the child doesn't do something that they think that the child should do, right? And instead of understanding that, no, this is just a child that doesn't know any better and is trying to get their needs met, but they're gonna make mistakes. They're gonna, do things the wrong way. Our job is to be judgmental and hold space for them, figure out what the need is, and show them the appropriate way to get it met.
Yeah, and to guide them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But when it comes more about you're making us look bad as a family, or right, or you're making me look bad as a mom or dad, then now it's about the parent and it's not about the child.
Right.
And that happens a lot.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. Well, as we end, what would you say is kind of on your heart to share with how the world is right now? We're kind of in a crazy time.
Yes.
Politically,
yes.
like all types of things. Like what kind of word of encouragement would you share with someone who may be kind of discouraged, whether it be with their own personal crisis or just with how things are going politically?
Keep your blinders on, but just, stay informed of what's happening. But the only thing that you can control is yourself, right? So don't pay too much attention to what everybody else is doing. Pay attention to what you're doing, and just try to take care of yourself and love yourself like as best as you can, because at the end of the day, that's all you can really control.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, then you should be able to put yourself in a good enough position to deal with, right? We don't run away from all of the problems and the issues, but if you are taking care of yourself and loving yourself, you should put yourself in a position where you are able to deal with the different adversities that are out there that we have to deal with. So, that's the only piece of advice that I have. Like, we can't change anything.
Yep.
The only thing we can do is change ourselves. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. How can we follow you? Are you taking clients, or is it closed?
Yeah, no, it's it's a revolving door. Like I don't want people to just be staying in therapy. Like it's about making change. So once people have met their goals, then we move on.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to meet and work with new people. I got some other things I'm working on too, so I'll be able to reach more people.
Oh, great.
And that's coming in the future. I don't want to speak on it too much yet. But I'm in College Park, Maryland. I have an office over there, and I have my IG page where I upload and talk about different subjects and different posts that I like, and so people can reach me there. It's Ubuntu Wellness DCMD.
Yep, we'll link it. We'll put it on the screen.
And you can always connect me there, or by phone, email, admin at ubuntuwellnessmd.com. or you can just give me a call. And I'm on Psychology Today. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good resource.
Yeah, definitely. But thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
I am honored to be here. I flaked on you the first time, but I had a bunch of stuff going on in my life, and I apologize for that.
But you came back.
Yes, I did. I got to get on Brianna's couch and talk to her. I'm very proud of you and all the work that you are doing. Like, this is your thing. I can tell. Yeah. And that's what's up. I like that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Follow him. If you need him, hit him up. He has things coming up. So, thank y'all.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Power of Care podcast. If you'd like to hear more, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Power of Care Podcast. And be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at Power of Care _.